Welcome to the Bold Analysis. My name is Frank. Of course, I'm glad to be back after a short break. Now, over the past few weeks that we've been witnessing unrelented protests by the Gen Zs on the streets and attacks on the presidency as the central office mandated with the protection of lives and to look into the well-being of the citizens of this country. There have been calls for the President William Ruto to disband his cabinet and also dissolve parliament so that Kenyans can go into fresh elections and elect people who are deserving to be in those offices. Even to extend it far, there have been calls on Ruto himself to withdraw or resign rather from his office as the president of this country. These are calls that have gone echoes and miles away. And before we delve further into this, of particular interest today are two clips that I want you to watch. One of Kakamega Senator Boni Halwale advising the president on how his cabinet and leaders that are surrounding him are let down to him. The second clip that I want you to watch is of a governance and policy expert, Professor Fred Ogola, taking us through the misses and mishits that Parliament had in the Finance Bill Debate 2024.
Mr. President, ikiwa unataka kuokoa wale waheshimiwa wenye walipiga yes, kama unataka inji itulie, Your Excellency, sio Finance Bill peke yake. Wakenya wako na hasira kwa sababu ya wizi ya hali ya juu ambayo inafanywa na mawaziri wako. Wakati Linturi, waziri wako, alileta wizi wa mbolea, nikainua sauti, alafu bunge ikakataa kumngoa yule Linturi. Hiyo hasira kwa Linturi na wale mawaziri wengine ambao ni waizi kama yeye ndio inaleta hii shida yenye unaona wa Kenya. Namba 2, Mr. President, wale waheshimiwa ambao wako karibu na wewe, ambao kwa muda kidogo 1.5 years maisha yao imependuka, walikuwa watu wa kawaida, lakini siku hizi wamekuwa matajiri wa kupindukia. Hata Didmus Barasa amenunua ndege, wengine hatuwaoni chini tena, wanapitia huko juu. Wengine wanaenda kwa harambee kama ya leo, hatoi kulingana na uwezo wake, anatoa kuja kuonyesha watu kwamba yeye ndio mwizi mwenye ameiba sana. Mr. President, how can a normal member of parliament aende katika harambee na atoe milioni 20 kwa kanisa moja, na atoke hapo aende kwa kanisa inayomfuata anapatia padri gari mpya ya Prado? Hii sura mbaya, Your Excellency, prevail upon your MPs to stop displaying wealth which they have not earned. They are displaying wealth yenye wameibia hawa watu maskini, hawa watu hawasikii vizuri.
As far as we are concerned, there's a process of doing any bill. A bill begins with the Treasury proposing a bill. It can go through the cabinet. After going to the cabinet, the bill is introduced in Parliament. And then Parliament takes the bill through public participation. Then it comes back to Parliament. Then after that, Parliament goes through the first reading, second reading, and third reading. Then the bill is passed and signed by the President. But here we are finding that these bills that are being introduced by Kenya Kwanza administration, they are not going through that process. Like now, after the finance bill had been introduced in Parliament, it was taken out for public participation. It came back to the House. Then the finance committee met in Naivasha. Then they went to take the bill to State House, and they changed the bill from State House in a press conference. That is not the right process of doing a bill. Now that the bill has gone through second reading, third reading, it was supposed to be signed by the president. The president has sent the bill back to Parliament. Now, what does that mean? If there are changes to be done, are they going back for public participation from people? If you see the people's anger, the rage that was there, when people are willing to take a bullet, they're willing to take a bullet because they were rejecting the finance bill. They didn't feel that there was enough public participation, if at all there was any. They felt that their voice was not heard. And that's why we are trying to say that according to us, this is not the right process, because people have said reject, don't amend. So when the president is taking the bill back to Parliament, he's taking it back for amendment, not for it to be withdrawn. Our advice was that withdraw the bill, start afresh, start with the people, work with the people of Kenya. The fact that Kenyans are poor, it doesn't mean that they don't know what they want. The fact that they are poor doesn't mean they are stupid. In fact, you are richer than Kenyans because Kenyans have made you rich with their own money. So we are asking the president to listen to Kenyans, withdraw this finance bill in totality, and ask Kenyans, where do we start and where do we go? Because even the borrowing we are talking about is coming from the very bill.
After having watched those two clips, there is a quote that I want to give you that has been made by one researcher here, that politicians given lifelines, despite lacking the basic credibility, would not side with the voters, but with their rescuers, be it that of their political party or the president. That is what is happening in the country. That the level of incompetency that is being witnessed across the political landscape among the cabinet secretaries, among the members of parliament, among the special advisory committee of the president, it is as a result of the wantings of the president himself. That is where the rain started beating Ruto. That is where Ruto started going wrong. Because in the run-up to the 2022 general elections, when a majority of these leaders had questionable credentials, had questionable characters, and a majority of them, their cases were before the High Court in particular, they rushed through the backdoor processes of the legal justice system to be rescued from the fangs of the law in order for them to vie for elective seats. And as fate would have it, a majority of them got their ways into parliament, a majority of them got their ways into positions of leadership, only for later them to be appointed as cabinet secretaries by the president himself. That is where he started going wrong. And since then, we've not ceased to see the drama that these leaders have attracted or have been attracting all over. From making reckless political statements and positions, from serious mismanagement of their ministries and departments, from corruption cases, you can name it, the fertilizer scandal, you can name it, all of it. This has been the trend that these leaders that President Ruto appointed to help him steer the country forward have been making. In fact, as a matter of fact, you ask any Kenyan today, the only thing that these leaders have been showing is flaunting of their wealth on social media, from expensive watches, shoes, and all other things that can be shown by these leaders. You even go further. You look at the way in which the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, conducted the debate or guided the MPs through the debate of the Financial Bill 2024, then you say something is wrong somewhere. something is seriously wrong somewhere. You try to compare the way in which the former Speaker of the National Assembly, Kenneth Otiato Marende, and the way in which Moses Wetangula conducts the business of the House, then the difference is the same as the difference between day and night. Whatever the Speaker portrayed was truly a lack of wisdom on his part, and even the level of the security threat that the debate on the contentious Finance Bill 2024 posed to this great country, and even to Parliament itself as an organ or as an arm of the government. So the way he was conducting the business, he was like somebody who was at the mercy of the executive. And his only intent was to please the executive that indeed I'm delivering as per your wishes and not as per the wishes of the Kenyan people who are by virtue elected us or we are representing in this house. And so I wouldn't find it wrong for somebody to blame the Occupy Parliament protests also on the Speaker of the National Assembly. Going forward, even the communication team of the president is a big letdown to him. It is a big letdown to him because they've failed to articulate on the government's strides and achievements, and also on the government policy directions and directives that the president is issuing in a language that can be comprehended and understandable by the ordinary mwananchi like you and I. Even this extends even to the bloggers that they've been hiring. You look at the way they manage the conversation about the protests around the Finance Bill 2024, apart from peddling false accusations against the protesters, they had nothing to show, as a matter of fact. This extends to the sycophants within his cabinet who have nothing tangible to offer to him. All they've resorted to, as we mentioned earlier, is flaunting of their wealth, instead of helping the president manage this current crisis that has pushed Kenya in general to the brink. We have, of course, the misadvising economic advisors within his advisory team, who, I don't know, by deliberately or by some extension, maybe they are limited in their scope of work, have also failed to advise him on the true and serious economic implications that this bill would have had on Kenyans and the current level of economic or cost of living that a majority of Kenyans are even finding it hard just to put food on their tables. And also on the list of traitors to the president is the so-called honorable MPs or members of parliament who went ahead and voted yes for the finance bill despite going around the country in the name of collecting public views, only later for them to come and ignore the very public views that they spent taxpayers' money on. So, it wouldn't be wrong to advise the president at this level that before the X reaching to him, as some people want, he should first start by sacking the incompetent cabinet secretaries and also dissolving parliament so that Mwananchi can have an opportunity to elect competent and people-centric government. The protests by themselves was a clear indication that people had lost trust in these people, because if protesters can threaten to go to State House, which is the seat of the executive, if they can threaten to go to Parliament, which is the seat of the legislature, if they can threaten and indeed went to the office of the Chief Justice, who is the president of the judiciary, then it means that people have lost confidence in the workables of this country. So, sometimes I tend to disagree with some analysts and also some people who tend to see that it is the strikes or the recent rampages and protests that we are witnessing are entirely as a result of the finance bill. No. The finance bill in its entirety is just but a trigger for the protests over anger that has accumulated since independence, because Kenyans are being faced or have been faced by serious problems that have been failed to be acted on by the previous governments and by extension the government of Dr. Ruto. From population growth, land degradation, corruption, predominance of politics over economics in this country, just but to mention but a few, are some of the things that are driving the Gen Zs crazy and are making them come out on streets. Of course, there are other factors such as the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, the issue of the ever-rising national debt that even pushed those young people to ask the president to tell them of who Kenya owes and how much and how Kenya services that loan. That is an information that is why we are blaming the communication experts within the president's team. That's an information that should be there to the public, but even if you are blaming them, then it's also clearly clear that the respective government in power is not ready to give this information to the public. Of course, the issue of cost of living that is continuously going higher is also the recent cause of the recent protests that we've been witnessing in the country. Because it is clear that this population of the Gen Zs on the streets, it is a population of young, frustrated, but educated young people in the country who have no tribal affiliations, they have no leader, as they say, they are leaderless, they are tribeless, and all the lessons that they add on it. These are people who have grown only in the cosmopolitan, and they are not affiliated to any political party, and their main challenge that everybody else is not talking seriously on is the issue of employment. Somebody once said that the issue of the unemployment in this country is indeed a ticking time bomb that when its time comes will indeed burst and with a loud bang. And therefore, going forward, even the recent decision to deploy some sections of the Kenya Defense Forces on the streets is just but a recipe for chaos in this country. And we need to tread carefully along that particular line, because these are issues that are healing this country. These are issues that are ailing this country, not healing, but rather ailing this country, that if not well tackled, today we might be able maybe to call a few representatives of the people on the streets and silence them or do whatever thing that you do, but then the problem still remains, and at one time it will rupture and with serious repercussions and consequences. I was following on a debate by two bright minds. One was that of Professor X.N. Iraki, who is a professor of business at the University of Nairobi, and one by somebody Kaltum Guyo, who is a legal researcher. And Iraki was saying that, 80%, he's an economist, 80% of Kenya's population is under 35 years of age. And a majority of these people who are under 35 years of age, they are the recent graduates from our universities, mainly major beneficiaries of the free primary education by the Kibaki administration. And these people have no jobs. These people have no opportunities. They are therefore pushed rather to rely on the informal sector of employment, which provides about 35% of employment to Kenyans. And to them also, they are being overwhelmed by the recent tax proposals by the government to them. So it's making even it hard for them to operate. So that one, by a matter of fact, is what is ailing this country and is what is pushing the president down the drain. So he should consider his options carefully before even appearing to be issuing threats to these young men and women who are determined to save their country at whatever price it comes with. Thank you for watching. That marks the end of our analysis.